Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
After the accident that left me with a seizure disorder and some pretty severe anxiety issues, I couldn't function on my own anymore. My German Shepherd changed all that. He's trained to detect when I'm about to have a seizure, gives me enough warning to get somewhere safe, stay with me during the episode, and keep other people at a safe distance. Without him, I'd probably be too scared to leave my apartment most days. Before the accident, I was just a normal 26-year-old working at a marketing firm, going out with friends on weekends, living my life. Then some guy ran a red light and T-boned my car. 6 months of recovery, countless doctor visits, and suddenly I'm dealing with seizures that can hit without warning. The psychological trauma was almost worse than the physical injuries. I still can't get in a car without my heart racing, but my dog gave me my independence back. He wears his vest, has all his documentation, and he's better trained than most people I know. We go everywhere together and usually it's fine. People ask to pet him sometimes, and I politely explain he's working. Most people are understanding. Last week though, that all went out the window. I was at my usual grocery store just trying to get through my shopping list. Milk, bread, some pasta, the basics. My dog was right beside me like always, calm and focused. That's when I noticed this older woman, probably in her 60s, watching me from across the produce section. Not watching my dog, watching me, following me with her eyes when I moved through the store. It made me uncomfortable, but I tried to ignore it. Maybe she was just spacing out, looking in my direction without really seeing me. I grabbed my items and headed to the cereal aisle. She followed me there. The woman walked right up to me and announced that my service dog was fake. I looked up from comparing cereal boxes, confused and caught off guard. I asked her what she meant. She went on to explain that I was too young to need a service dog and that I looked perfectly healthy. Then she added that people like me were the reason real disabled people got questioned. My stomach dropped. I've dealt with this before, but it never gets easier. I told her that he was a real service dog and that I had his documentation if she needed to see it. She dismissed this immediately, saying she didn't need to see anything. She said she could tell I was faking because I was walking fine and shopping by myself. She demanded to know what I could possibly need a dog for. My hands were starting to shake. I just wanted to buy my groceries and go home. I explained to her that I had a medical condition and that was all I was required to tell her. Her voice got louder. People in nearby aisles were definitely listening now. She launched into a rant about how ridiculous this was, how millennials think they can just bring their pets everywhere, and how my dog should be at home instead. I could feel my heart pounding. My dog pressed closer to my leg and nudged my hand with his nose. He was picking up on my stress, starting to go into alert mode. The woman saw this and scoffed, saying I probably trained him to do that for attention. That's when I felt it. The aura. It's hard to describe, like a weird electrical feeling that starts in my head and spreads down. My vision got a little blurry around the edges. My dog started whining, more insistent now, trying to get me to sit down. I managed to tell her I was about to have a seizure before everything went sideways. I don't remember hitting the floor. I don't remember the seizure itself. That's how it always goes. There's just a blank space where a few minutes should be. What I do know is that my dog did exactly what he was trained to do. He stayed with me, kept people from crowding me, and waited for me to come back. When I finally came to, I was on the floor of the cereal aisle with boxes scattered around me. There were store employees kneeling nearby. Someone had a phone out. My dog was right next to me, watching me carefully, and Karen was still standing there, about 10 feet back, looking like she'd seen a ghost. A paramedic crew showed up a few minutes later. They checked my vitals, asked me the standard questions. I told them I didn't need to go to the hospital. This wasn't my first rodeo. I knew what to expect, knew I'd be foggy and exhausted for the rest of the day, but otherwise, okay. While one of the paramedics was checking my blood pressure, Karen approached me again. Her eyes were red. She stammered out an apology, saying she was so sorry and that she didn't know. She looked devastated. I looked at her and told her plainly that she didn't know because it was none of her business. I explained that this was exactly why you don't harass strangers about their service dogs. She started crying, actually crying, tears running down her face. She turned and rushed out of the store. One of the employees who'd stayed with me said she'd been telling everyone nearby how horrible she felt, how she didn't realize. Part of me felt bad watching her leave like that, but honestly, I was too tired and shaken to care much. The paramedics finished up, made sure I had someone to call, and left. The store manager apologized and said my groceries were on the house. I thanked him and left when I could. My best friend called me that evening after I texted her what happened. She said I was too harsh with Karen, that the woman clearly felt terrible. Maybe, but I gave her multiple chances to just leave me alone. I was polite. I offered to show documentation. She could have walked away at any point. Instead, she kept pushing, kept saying she knew better than me about my own body, my own disability, and she got to see exactly why someone who looks fine might need a service dog. For over 15 years, I stayed close with my college roommate. We made it through graduation, job changes, moves, and all the chaos life threw at us. When she got engaged last year, I was thrilled. The wedding invitation came and I sent back my RSVP immediately. The thing is, I have celiac disease and a severe dairy allergy. I got diagnosed about 8 years ago after months of being sick and not knowing why. It's not some trendy diet thing or a preference. If I eat gluten or dairy, I'm in the bathroom for hours, doubled over in pain, and sick for days afterward. I ended up in the ER twice because someone assured me their food was safe when it wasn't. When I filled out the RSVP card, there was a section for dietary restrictions. I wrote down that I couldn't have gluten or dairy. A week later, my friend called me. She told me she saw my note about the food restrictions. I apologized and said I knew it could be a pain to accommodate. She explained that the venue couldn't really guarantee anything because of cross-contamination in their kitchen. They prepped everything in the same space. But there would be salad and fruit, so hopefully I could make do with that. I felt a little disappointed, but I understood. Wedding catering is complicated and expensive. I didn't want to be difficult. I told her no problem and that I totally understood. I said I'd figure something out. She thanked me for being so understanding and said she'd see me at the wedding. I thought about my options for the next few days. I could eat beforehand, but the ceremony was at 4 and dinner wouldn't be until 7. Going 3 hours without eating makes me shaky and lightheaded, especially if I'm standing around at the reception. I could skip the reception entirely, but this was one of my closest friends. I wanted to be there to celebrate with her, so I came up with what I thought was a reasonable solution. I bring a small container of safe food in my purse. Just grilled chicken and rice, nothing fancy or smelly. During dinner service, I'd slip outside for 5 minutes, eat quickly, and come back to join everyone. No fuss, no drama, no making anyone uncomfortable. The wedding day came and it was beautiful. The ceremony made me tear up. My friend looked stunning, and her now husband couldn't stop smiling. Everything was perfect. At the reception, I sat at my assigned table and chatted with the other guests. When the servers started bringing out dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. I grabbed my purse and headed outside to a quiet spot by the parking lot. I pulled out my container and ate quickly. The whole thing took maybe 5 minutes. When I came back inside, I tucked my empty container in my purse and rejoined my table. Everyone was still eating. I sipped water and jumped into the conversation like nothing had happened. About an hour later, the groom's mother approached my table. She's someone I'd only met once before, at the engagement party. She had this tight smile on her face. She told me she needed to speak with me outside. I followed her out confused. The moment we were alone, her expression changed completely. She said she saw me eating my own food earlier, from a container. I explained that yes, I had a medical condition where I couldn't eat gluten or dairy, and the venue couldn't accommodate that. I told her I didn't want to cause any trouble, so I brought something small. She asked if I had any idea how disrespectful that was. She said I was insulting the caterer and making her son and his new wife look cheap, like they couldn't afford to feed their guests properly. I told her I really wasn't trying to make anyone look bad. I just needed to eat something safe so I wouldn't get sick during the reception. She snapped that I should have eaten before I came if I had such a problem. She said this wedding was about the couple, not about my diet. I tried to explain that I did eat before, but the ceremony was hours ago. If I didn't eat, I'd faint or get sick. I wanted to be here for the whole event. She rolled her eyes like I was making excuses. She said I was being selfish and embarrassing the family. She told me that if I couldn't eat what was provided, I shouldn't have come at all. She walked away before I could respond. I stood there feeling like I'd been slapped. I went back inside, but the rest of the night felt ruined. I kept catching her looking at me from across the room with this angry expression. The next day, I started getting texts from mutual friends. The groom's mother had told half the wedding party that I'd brought my own food and made a scene about it. Some people were supportive, but others said I'd made a rude move. One friend texted that I'd made the couple look bad and that I should have just skipped dinner entirely if I couldn't eat what was served. I felt awful. I spent the whole week second-guessing myself. Maybe I should have just eaten beforehand and suffered through feeling lightheaded. Maybe I should have skipped the reception. Maybe I was selfish. Then, a week after the wedding, my friend called me. She said she heard what happened with her mother-in-law. I apologized immediately and said I didn't mean to cause any drama at her wedding. She told me to stop and that I didn't do anything wrong. She said her mother-in-law had told her about confronting me, and she was furious. I had a medical condition and handled it discreetly. Her mother-in-law had no right to make me feel bad about that. I said that people were saying I made her look cheap. She insisted that the only person who looked bad here was her mother-in-law. She said she was actually glad this happened because now she knew exactly who her mother-in-law was. Her husband was dealing with her, and anyone who thought I should have risked getting sick at her wedding wasn't worth listening to. The relief I felt was overwhelming. She went on to tell me that she told everyone at brunch yesterday what really happened. She made it very clear that I asked about accommodations, that they couldn't provide them, and that I handled it quietly on my own. Her mother-in-law tried to defend herself and just made it worse. Half the family thought she was ridiculous now. I said I was really worried I'd ruined her day. She assured me I didn't ruin anything. Her mother-in-law did. She apologized that I had to deal with that. I've been a K-9 officer for about 6 years now, and I've seen a lot of weird stuff on the job. My partner's name is Rex, and he's a Belgian Malinois trained in narcotics detection and apprehension. We were assigned to work a drug trafficking case that had been building for months. Our unit had received the tip that a major exchange was going down at the metro station downtown, and we were part of the team deployed to intercept it. This wasn't some routine patrol where we could stop and chat with people. We were on an active operation. I've always loved working with Rex. He's smart, loyal, and incredibly good at his job. When we're working, though, he's all business. That's how these dogs are trained. They're not pets when they're in their vest and on duty. They're working professionals, just like me. So there we were, positioned near the north entrance of the station. Rex was in his full tactical vest, and I was scanning the crowd for our suspects. The radio chatter was constant in my ear. My supervisor was coordinating movements, other units were reporting positions, and we were all watching for 2 male suspects carrying black duffel bags. That's when she showed up. I noticed her because she was walking directly toward us, which meant she was entering a perimeter we were trying to keep clear. She had a kid with her, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The kid spotted Rex immediately and got excited, pointing at him and telling his mom to look at the police dog. I saw them approaching, and I held up my hand in a stopping gesture. I told her that I needed them to keep moving through this area because we were conducting an operation, but she completely ignored me. She just kept walking closer, and the kid was already reaching out toward Rex. She said something about how cute he was and how her son loved dogs. I explained to her that I understood, but we were working right now and this was an active situation. I told her they needed to move along. She brushed me off, saying it would just take a second and that her son just wanted to pet him. The kid was now about 3 feet away, still reaching for Rex. I stepped slightly in front of my partner and told her for the 3rd time that this was a working police dog on an active operation. I made it clear that she could not pet him and needed to leave this area immediately. Her whole demeanor changed. Her face went from friendly to furious in about half a second. She asked me if I knew who she was and said that her husband was an attorney. I told her I didn't care if her husband was the president. She needed to move, and she needed to move now. She started going on about how this was a public space and her son had every right to be here. She said I couldn't tell them what to do. My radio crackled. One of our suspects had been spotted entering the station. I needed to focus, but this woman was still standing there, now with her phone out, trying to record me. I gave her a final warning. I told her to leave this area or she would be detained for interfering with a police operation. She went off on me, saying I couldn't detain her for wanting her son to pet a dog. She called it harassment and discrimination. Her son was crying now, pulling on her sleeve and begging her to just go. He kept saying please, clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation, but she wasn't listening to him either. She was too busy yelling at me about her rights and how she was going to have my badge, and how dare I speak to her that way. Then Rex alerted. His whole body tensed and his attention locked onto something in the crowd. I turned my head for just a second to follow his gaze. That's when I saw our primary suspect about 50 yards away. And that's when she did it. In the split second I wasn't looking directly at her, this woman actually kicked my dog. She kicked Rex right in his side hard enough that he yelped. I spun back around, and everything happened fast after that. Rex, trained to respond to threats, immediately engaged. He lunged forward and took her down to the ground, his teeth gripping her arm. Not breaking skin, but holding her firmly. That's what he's trained to do when someone attacks. She was screaming. Absolutely screaming bloody murder. She kept yelling for me to get him off her and calling him an animal. I called Rex off and he released immediately, backing up, but still in a ready stance. Then I moved in and told her she was under arrest for assaulting a police officer and interfering with a police operation. I ordered her to put her hands behind her back. She protested, saying I couldn't arrest her and that she didn't do anything. I explained that she had kicked a police dog, which was assaulting an officer. I told her to put her hands behind her back, and I meant now. She tried to resist, but I had her cuffed in about 10 seconds. Her son was sobbing, absolutely hysterical. I felt terrible for the kid. None of this was his fault. He was begging me not to take his mom and crying out for her. Other officers had rushed over when they saw what was happening. One of them gently guided the kid away while another called for child services to come get him until a family member could pick him up. I walked her toward my patrol car and she fought me the entire way, screaming about lawsuits and brutality and how she was going to own the department. She claimed that the dog had attacked her and that she was the victim. I told her that the dog had defended himself after she assaulted him. I also mentioned that she was on camera and that this whole area was covered by surveillance. Her face went pale when I said that. She stopped struggling quite much. I got her into the back of the car and shut the door. Through the window, I could see her crying now instead of yelling. Her son was still sobbing with another officer nearby, and my heart broke for that kid. Rex was fine, by the way. I checked him over thoroughly. He's tough, and it takes more than a kick from an angry woman to hurt him. But I was still furious. The operation continued. We got both suspects and recovered about $30,000 worth of narcotics. But honestly, the most memorable part of that day wasn't the successful bust. It was watching that entitled woman get exactly what she deserved for thinking the rules didn't apply to her and that she could assault a police officer just because he happened to have 4 legs and fur. She ended up being charged with assaulting a police officer, interfering with police operations, child endangerment, and resisting arrest. Her attorney husband showed up at the station later. Apparently, he was pretty angry with her too. My father was the kind of man who made you feel like the world was a little bit safer just by being in the same room. He had this way of listening that made you feel heard, really heard, not just tolerated. When I came home crying because kids at school made fun of my glasses, he sat with me for 2 hours and told me stories about all the brilliant people in history who wore glasses. When my sister failed her math test, he didn't yell or compare her to anyone else. He just helped her study every night for 2 weeks until she understood it. That was just who he was. My mother was his complete opposite. She had favorites, and she made sure we all knew it. My brother could do no wrong in her eyes. He got a new bike when he asked for one. He got taken out for dinner when he made the soccer team. My sister and I learned early on that we existed in a different category. When I made honor roll 3 years in a row, she said it was expected and that I shouldn't act like it was special. When my sister won a scholarship for $2,000 to help with college, our mother asked why she hadn't gotten a full ride. She had this talent for making every achievement feel small and every mistake feel enormous, but her cruelty went deeper than just playing favorites. She'd actively work to turn us against each other. She'd tell my sister that I said something mean about her, then tell me that my sister was jealous of me. She'd buy my brother expensive gifts and give us hand-me-downs, then act shocked when we felt hurt. When we tried to talk to each other about it, we'd realize she'd been lying, manipulating all of us. It took us years to figure out her game and even longer to stop falling for it. My sister bore the heaviest burden. She looked exactly like our father, and I think our mother resented her for it. She criticized everything about her, from her career choices to her appearance to the way she laughed. My sister developed such severe anxiety that she couldn't make decisions without second-guessing herself 100 times. She went through therapy for years trying to undo the damage. I wasn't spared either. Our mother made it clear that being her daughter was somehow a disappointment. She'd tell people at family gatherings about my brother's achievements while introducing us as just the girls with this dismissive wave of her hand. She'd forget our birthdays but never his. When I got into college, she asked why I hadn't aimed higher. When my sister got engaged, she asked if her fiancé knew what he was getting into. Dad tried to balance it out. He'd take us out for ice cream after particularly bad days. He'd tell us we were brilliant and beautiful and capable of anything. He'd apologize for her behavior even though it wasn't his fault. He was the glue holding our family together, the reason we didn't all just walk away. When Dad got sick, we all came home. Even then, our mother made it about her. She complained about having to deal with doctors, about how his illness was inconvenient, about how she was the real victim in all of this. My sister and I took turns staying at the hospital because we couldn't trust her to actually care for him. We were there when he died, holding his hands, telling him how much we loved him. The funeral arrangements fell to us kids. Our mother barely participated. She sat in her chair at home making demands about the service, but refusing to actually help plan anything. My brother handled most of the logistics, but my sister and I insisted on writing the headstone inscription. We spent hours on it. We wanted it to capture who he really was, not just the basic facts of his life. We settled on something that felt right. We listed him in loving memory, devoted father, kind brother, and constant friend. Every word was carefully chosen, every description earned through decades of him being exactly that person. The headstone cost $2,200, and we split it 3 ways between us kids. Our mother lived for another 18 years. We did our duty, visited when we had to, called on holidays. But none of us were close to her. She never changed, never softened, never apologized for anything. She'd still make her cutting remarks, still try to manipulate us, but we'd learned to tune it out. My sister and I had gone to therapy, had built lives we were proud of, despite her best efforts to convince us we weren't worth anything. When she finally died, there was relief more than grief. My brother felt guilty about it, but my sister and I were honest about how we felt. We'd mourned the mother we wished we'd had years ago. This was just the end of a long, painful chapter. The question of the headstone came up at the lawyer's office. It was a double plot, purchased decades ago, and it needed to be updated to include her. My brother was busy settling the estate. He looked at my sister and me and told us that since we'd handled our father's inscription, we should do this one too. My sister and I exchanged a look. We both knew what the other was thinking. We went to the stonemason together, brought the paperwork, and sat down to discuss the addition. The mason pulled out the file and read Dad's inscription out loud, smiling at the warmth of it. He commented on what a beautiful tribute it was, then asked what we'd like to add for our mother. My sister looked at me. I looked at her. We'd talked about this on the drive over, had gone back and forth about what to do. We could have been generous, could have lied and listed qualities she didn't have. We could have matched Dad's inscription with something equally elaborate. But why should we? Why should we memorialize her in a way she never was? Why should we give her in death what she never gave us in life? I told him to just add the word also in her name. The Mason looked confused. He asked if that was really all we wanted, with no other details. My sister confirmed that it was correct. She explained that the stone should read exactly how it was, then add the word also and our mother's first name. He looked like he wanted to say something, maybe convince us to add more, but something in our faces must have told him not to push it. He nodded and wrote it down. The work would cost $350. My sister and I split the cost. When the stone was finished, it was perfect. Dad's inscription stood proud and detailed, a testament to a life well lived and a man well loved. And beneath it, just two words: also Mary. We never told our brother exactly what we'd done until he saw it himself. He stared at it for a long time, then started laughing. Not cruel laughter, just the kind that comes from recognition, from understanding. He said it was perfect, and it was. I had worked 2 jobs through college and saved every penny I could to make the down payment on my house. My parents helped a little, but most of it was me. I was so proud of that house. I met my ex about 6 months after I moved in. We worked at the same company, different departments. He seemed nice at first. Funny, charming, always knew what to say. We started dating and things moved pretty fast. Maybe too fast. After 4 months, he said his lease was up and he was having trouble finding a new place. I offered to let him stay with me temporarily. That was my first mistake. Temporary turned into permanent real quick. He moved all his stuff in, but he never contributed like he said he would. At first, he paid his half of the bills on time and he had a decent job in sales. But then things started changing. He'd come home in bad moods and take it out on me. Little comments at first about my cooking, my clothes, how I kept the house. Then it got worse. He'd tell me I was stupid for how I handled money, even though I was the only one paying the bills. He'd say no one else would want to be with me, that I should be grateful he stayed. When I tried to talk to him about it, he'd twist everything around until somehow I was the one apologizing. Then he lost his job. He said it wasn't his fault, that his boss had it out for him. He promised he'd find something new right away and catch up on his share of everything. He owed me about $500 at that point for bills he'd missed. He found another job after a month but lost it 2 months later. Same story. Bad boss, unfair treatment, everyone else's fault. By now he owed me over $1,000, and the number kept climbing. The utilities, the mortgage payment, groceries, everything was coming out of my account. Meanwhile, he somehow always had money for cigarettes and beer. I noticed other things going missing too. Cash from my wallet, gift cards I've been saving. He denied it every time. Then I started finding things. Little baggies in his jacket pockets, pills that were in prescription. When I confronted him, he exploded. Told me I was paranoid, that I was trying to control him, that I was the problem. I believed him for a while. That's what happens when someone chips away at you every single day. 6 months ago, I finally tried to end it. I told him we were done and he needed to move out. He laughed at me. He asked where he was supposed to go. I told him that wasn't my problem anymore and reminded him this was my house. He said he lived there too and I couldn't just kick him out. I told him yes, I could because his name wasn't on anything and he didn't pay for anything. He told me to try it and see what happens. I tried to be civil about it. I really did. I gave him deadlines. 30 days, then 60, then 90. He ignored every single one. He'd promise to leave, then do nothing. Or he'd start packing and then stop, leaving boxes everywhere for weeks. My friends told me to just change the locks, but I was scared. He had a temper, and it was getting worse. He punched a hole in my hallway wall during one argument, broke a plate during another. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked. The money kept adding up. $2,000. That's what he owed me by the time things finally exploded. It was a Wednesday night. I came home from work and found him passed out on my couch, surrounded by empty beer cans and food wrappers. The kitchen was a disaster. He'd used every dish and left them all in the sink. I woke him up and asked him to clean up his mess. He told me to do it myself. I said no, I was done cleaning up after him. I told him he needed to leave that night. He said he wasn't going anywhere. I told him he'd had 6 months, and I was done being nice about it. That's when he stood up and got in my face. His eyes were wild, unfocused. I could smell the alcohol on his breath. He asked if I thought I could tell him what to do in his own house. I told him it wasn't his house and never was. He said he'd burn the whole place down before he let me kick me out, with me in it. My blood went cold. I grabbed my phone and went to my car. I drove to the police station and filed a report. They took it seriously because of the threat. An officer told me how to file for an emergency removal order. It took 2 weeks, but I got the papers. The sheriff came with me to serve them. My ex screamed at everyone, called me every name you can imagine, but he had to leave. He threw some clothes in a bag and left everything else. A few days later, one of our mutual friends messaged me. They said my ex had shown up at their place asking to crash for a few nights. They let him stay, but he disappeared after less than a week. Just got in an Uber one morning and left. His car was still parked on their street. Months passed. His car sat there. The plates expired in August. I'd driven past it a few times and noticed the tickets piling up under the windshield wiper. Then this weekend, I found out the truth about a lot of things. Turns out he'd been telling people I was crazy, that I kicked him out for no reason, that he'd paid for half of everything. He told them I was controlling and abusive. Our mutual friends started comparing stories, and nothing he'd said to anyone matched up. They realized he'd been lying to all of us about different things. One friend told me he'd stolen money from them too. Another said he'd crashed at their place before and stole their prescription medication. I was done. I called the non-emergency police line and reported the car as abandoned. I gave them the address and explained the situation. They said if it had expired plates and had it moved in months, they'd have it towed. It was gone by Monday morning. The friend whose house it was parked at texted me a thank you. Apparently, they've been trying to get him to move it for months, but he kept saying he'd get to it eventually. I told them it was no problem and that I should have done it sooner. They said they were all getting together Friday night and asked if I wanted to come. I agreed. I showed up and realized something. Every single person there was someone I'd known before I met my ex. These were my friends. He'd just tagged along to our hangouts and inserted himself into the group. And now that he was gone, nobody missed him. A few people even mentioned how much better things felt without him around. One person admitted they'd only tolerated him because of me. I got my house back. I got my peace back. I got my friends back. And he got his car towed from someone else's property with 3 months of unpaid parking tickets attached to it. He had to pay over $800 to get it out of impound, plus all the ticket fees. Sometimes I still get angry thinking about the $2,000 he owes me. I'll probably never see that money again, but you know what? It was worth it to get him out of my life. Consider it an expensive lesson learned about who to trust. The house feels different now, lighter somehow. I repainted the hallway to cover up the hole he punched. I replaced all the dishes he broke. I changed the locks even though I didn't technically need to anymore. It just felt right. I'm rebuilding, slowly but surely. And every day that passes without him in it is a better day than any I had with him. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.